Morning. A scream cut through the dormitory halls. The door swung open. She crouched before the sink, just one step short of survival. November 26, 2009, Shanghai Maritime University. A case that shocked China begins here. Welcome to Red Eastern True Crime. If you want to see more cases like this, please hit like and subscribe. Let's get into the story. On the morning of November 26, 2009, just after 9 a.m., a security officer at Shanghai Maritime University rushed to dormitory building 24, room 506, after an urgent call. A dorm supervisor pointed him toward the bathroom. Inside, the sight froze him. A young woman crouched before the sink, two towels knotted around her neck, looped over the faucet. An ambulance arrived, but before reaching the hospital, she was already gone. Her name was Yuanyuan, a newly enrolled master's student in maritime law. She had been on campus only 2 months. The sink stood less than a meter high. If she wanted to, she could have stood up and saved herself. But she didn't. Why would a promising young woman choose such an end? 16 years ago, this mystery shocked all of China. Yuanyuan was born in November 1979 in Yicheng, Hubei province. 2 years later, her younger brother arrived. Their father gave her the name Yuan, the same word as China's currency, hoping she would grow up prosperous and successful. Her mother, Wang Riling, let's call her Linda, was born in 1953, also in Yicheng. Orphaned young, she finished only elementary school before being sent to work at Plant 404, a military factory producing power equipment for Navy destroyers. There, she met and married an engineer who became Yuanyuan's father. Linda always felt insecure about her lack of education. She admired her husband, respected knowledge, and believed her children's future depended on studying hard. However, in 1985, tragedy struck. Yuanyuan's father died of liver disease, leaving Linda to raise 2 children alone on a meager gatekeeper's salary. Meat was a rare luxury on their table. Yuanyuan saw her mother struggle. She cared for her little brother, asked for little herself, and vowed to study hard, get into a top university, and lift her family out of hardship. Linda shared that vision. She set goals. Yuanyuan would go to Shanghai, her brother to Beijing. Both children excelled. Yuanyuan was fiercely competitive, always chasing the top spot in class, even against friends, and she trusted her mother completely. No one could criticize Linda in her presence. When it came to life's big decisions, Yuanyuan always let her mother choose. In 1998, after taking the National College exam, Yuanyuan dreamed of studying law in another province, not just to earn money, but to fight for justice. But her mother, Linda, dismissed the idea as unrealistic. She pushed Yuanyuan toward economics at Wuhan University, cheaper, more practical, and closer to home. Reluctantly, Yuanyuan obeyed. Since Linda couldn't afford the tuition and dorm fees, just over $100 at the time, Yuanyuan took out student loans. She juggled multiple jobs, tutoring, waiting tables, even working in the cafeteria. She studied relentlessly, won scholarships, and never once asked her mother for money. In her freshman year, she even served as class leader. 2 years later, her younger brother also entered Wuhan University, majoring in environmental science. Linda was proud. Both children were now in college. But in 2001, a crisis hit. Linda's factory announced a relocation. Workers could not live in company housing unless they bought it for 35,000 RMB, about $4,200. On her 300 RMB monthly salary, Linda couldn't possibly afford it. Worried about losing both her job and her home, Linda made a drastic choice. She told Yuanyuan, "You and your brother are both in big cities now. I'll move in with you at school. It'll save money." Yuanyuan hesitated, saying she'd need to ask the university, but Linda didn't wait. At 48, she filed for internal retirement, a system in China where state workers exit early on partial pay until they reach the official retirement age. Then she packed her bags and moved into her 22-year-old daughter's dorm room. For Yuanyuan, it was a shock, but she had no choice. From that day forward, mother and daughter squeezed into one narrow dorm bed, just 90 centimeters wide. This strange arrangement would last for 8 years. By day, Yuanyuan went to class. Linda knitted, sewed, or peddled snacks and trinkets in the dorm halls. When Yuanyuan returned from the library, she joined her mother at the stall. Together, they earned only $1 or $2 a day, barely enough to support both children. Eventually, Yuanyuan applied to the school to get her mother a proper bed. Linda soon became a familiar face on campus, friendly with the dorm managers. But for Yuanyuan, everything changed. Her social life disappeared. Friends drifted away. A budding romance ended. With her mother constantly present, Yuanyuan retreated further and further into isolation. In 2002, Yuanyuan graduated. Despite her excellent grades, she wasn't recommended for graduate school. She passed the entrance exam for Peking University Law School, but tuition was 30,000 RMB, about $3,600, far beyond her reach. She gave up the dream. She still owed nearly $480 in student loans. Without paying, she couldn't even get her diploma, making job hunting even harder. At job fairs, she simply dropped off her resume and walked away, never speaking to recruiters. She and Linda rented a $35 a month apartment in Wuhan. Job offers came, but Linda shot them down. A government post back in their hometown? "I'd rather sweep streets in Wuhan than go back there," she said. A teaching job in Xi'an? Linda forbade it, fearing scams. Instead, Yuanyuan settled for a low-paying English teaching job, just $100 a month. She stayed 2 years. Parents tried chatting with her after class, but she always pulled away. At night, she sat quietly at flea markets, reading while Linda sold small goods. She withdrew further. No phone, no contact with classmates. "I'll reconnect when I've achieved something," she told her cousin. "Otherwise, it's too embarrassing." She tried selling insurance, failed. She started a small literary magazine. It collapsed. She sold clothes, little profit. By 2007, she finally repaid her loans and received her diploma, but she was nearly 30. Her peers were buying homes, cars, or finishing PhDs. Yuanyuan, meanwhile, slipped deeper into isolation. In 2007, Yuanyuan's younger brother began his PhD at Peking University. Inspired, she tried once more for graduate school. After 3 failed attempts, she finally succeeded. In 2009, she was admitted to her dream program, Maritime Law at Shanghai Maritime University, on a state-funded placement, with tuition fully covered. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of real hope. From the day Linda moved into Yuanyuan's dorm, mother and daughter never separated. Even after graduation, they spent 7 long years squeezed into small rented places across Wuhan. There was no space, no privacy, no air of independence. By then, her brother had cleared his student loans and was deep into his doctorate. Linda had officially retired, living on a modest state pension of 900 RMB, just $130 a month. Before leaving Wuhan, Yuanyuan and her brother discussed their mother's future. Yuanyuan worried that bringing Linda to Shanghai would only add to the pressure, a city too big, too expensive, too unfamiliar. Her brother, with steady income in Beijing, was ready to take their mother in. However, Linda had already decided she would stay with her daughter. More than that, she longed for Shanghai. In her 20s, she had lived there briefly, and ever since, she carried a dream of returning to its lights, its energy, its cosmopolitan charm. Relatives warned her, Yuanyuan is 30 now, she needs her own life. But Linda brushed it off. Plenty of people in their 30s aren't married. She said herself she'll focus on her career first. And so, on September 12, 2009, Linda followed Yuanyuan to Shanghai. She didn't rent her own place. She didn't even try. Instead, she moved straight into her daughter's dorm, squeezing into the narrow 1.2-meter single bed. Night after night, mother and daughter pressed together. For Yuanyuan, it was suffocating. She was older than her classmates, quiet, already on the margins. Now she bore a new mark, the girl who lived with her mother in the dorm. Every day came the same stares, the whispers, the silent judgment. Each glance felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. At the very start of term, Yuanyuan tried to make it official. She asked her advisor if her mother could stay. "Put it in writing," he said, and so she did, pleading in her letter. "For years my mother and I have leaned only on each other, wandering from place to place. Please understand our situation. Please grant her a bed in one of the rooms." But no reply ever came. Weeks of silence stretched on, and Linda took it as consent. Night after night, she stayed in the dorm with her daughter. Soon, even Yuanyuan's roommate couldn't take the pressure. She moved out, and just like that, the room became theirs alone. It didn't last. The roommate's departure drew the school's attention. By late October, Yuanyuan's advisor called again. Outsiders were not allowed in dorms. Her mother had to go. To soften the blow, the school offered her a work-study job, 300 RMB a month, barely $40, and handed her a list of rental rooms. But every rental option was either too costly or shared. Yuanyuan and Linda refused. "The bed is empty. Why can't she stay?" Linda asked in an interview. She even claimed the roommate hadn't left out of conflict, but out of pity, because Linda and Yuanyuan were forced to share a bed every night. Still, the university stood firm. Linda refused to leave until she was forced. A month later, on November 21st, dorm staff arrived and demanded she move out that day. That night, in the pouring rain, mother and daughter searched for housing. Nothing. Exhausted, they spent 100 RMB, about $14, on a cheap hotel. Yuanyuan lay awake, restless. The next day, still no home. Linda refused to waste more money. That night, she sat shivering outside the campus auditorium until morning. At dawn, Yuanyuan found her there and collapsed in tears, blaming herself. On the third day, Yuanyuan finally secured a rental from a PE teacher. 450 RMB a month, about $65. They agreed without even looking inside. But when they moved in, they found only bare concrete walls, no furniture, no heat. That night, they spread blankets on the cold cement floor. Yuanyuan did not sleep again. The next morning, November 24th, with no hot water in the apartment, Linda slipped back into the dorm to shower. A supervisor caught her, and a heated argument broke out. That evening, back in the damp chill of Shanghai's winter, Yuanyuan broke down. She apologized again and again. She had failed her mother. Classmates once behind her were now ahead. She regretted not pursuing law in undergrad. Bitter, she vowed, "I'll sue the school. I'll make them let you back into the dorm." On November 25th, Yuanyuan whispered, "Isn't knowledge supposed to change destiny? I've studied all these years, and nothing has changed." For the first time, she skipped class. Instead, she asked her mother to sit with her on the track, where they talked for hours. Linda later recalled her words were scattered, her thoughts confused, like she was slipping away. That evening, Yuanyuan went to rehearsal. She was Juliet in Romeo and Juliet. Her performance was steady, her lines smooth. No one noticed that behind Juliet's tragedy, Yuanyuan was rehearsing her own final act. At 7 a.m. on November 26th, Linda went to the cafeteria as planned, waiting for her daughter, but Yuanyuan never came. Panicked, she rushed to the dorm building, calling her name. No reply. With a supervisor's permission, she signed in and went to room 506. She knocked again and again. Silence. Thinking Yuanyuan might have gone back to their rented room, she ran there instead, but it was empty. By 8:45, Linda was back at the dorm. This time, staff arrived with tools and forced the door. The room was empty, except the bathroom, locked from the inside. When they pried it open, Linda froze. What she saw left her stunned and broken. Staff tried CPR. At 9:05 a.m., Yuanyuan was lifted into an ambulance. She never made it alive to the hospital. In the days that followed, Linda, Yuanyuan's brother, and 5 relatives, 7 in all, demanded answers from the university. Linda lashed out, blaming the school's unyielding pressure for driving her daughter over the edge. She told reporters that in late October, a school official had sneered, "If you don't have money, why study for a master's? A bachelor's is enough." The school denied it. Linda also claimed she begged dorm staff to open the door earlier that morning, but they refused. To this day, she insists Yuanyuan might have been saved if they had acted sooner. 10 days later, the story erupted online, sparking nationwide debate. Narratives flew. The university forced her to her death. Her mother's suffocating dependence destroyed her. The dream of graduate school killed her. Public opinion split into two camps. Some blamed the school, others blamed Linda. Critics of the university pointed to discrimination against poor students and negligence by dorm staff. Critics of Linda accused her of never cutting the cord, tying her daughter to 8 years of shared dependency. Some even questioned Yuanyuan's brother. Why could he repay his loans, study freely, and date without burden, while Yuanyuan carried their mother's weight alone? Under pressure, the brother gave an interview. He said he had contributed, buying Yuanyuan a $1,000 laptop in 2008 to help her prepare for exams. He added that once he finished his PhD, he planned to bring their mother to Beijing, but had never told Yuanyuan or Linda. He admitted, though, that he regretted not listening more closely, not guiding his sister when she needed it most. Meanwhile, Linda and her relatives demanded 350,000 RMB, about $50,000, in compensation, plus a formal apology. She said $7,000 would cover funeral costs. The rest would go toward buying her a home. On December 15, 2009, Yuanyuan's funeral was held in Shanghai. The university offered 160,000 RMB, about $22,000, in humanitarian compensation, but no apology. When asked about the future, Linda said, "I'll live alone for now. My son hasn't bought a place yet, but once he starts working, I'll definitely move in with him." At the time of Yuanyuan's death, Linda already received $130 a month in pension, had over $1,000 in savings, and still owned her old home in Yichang. Many former co-workers still lived there, where life was cheaper. But instead of living on her own, Linda chose to crowd into her daughter's narrow dorm bed, side by side with students half her age. A reporter once asked Linda, "Why not support yourself? Why depend on your daughter?" Linda replied, "I have nowhere to live." The reporter pressed, "But some of your co-workers still live in the old housing." Linda shot back, "Why should I live there?" The reporter asked again, "So why not?" Linda answered, "In Wuhan, I can run small trades. I make about $1.30 a day, enough to help my kids." The reporter countered, "Couldn't you find odd jobs back home?" Linda insisted, "There aren't any." In her first 2 years of college, Yuanyuan had been active, joining clubs, making friends, building a life. But once Linda moved into her dorm, everything shifted. Their lives fused into one. Yuanyuan withdrew, stopped reaching out, and in her classmates' eyes became stubborn, introverted, and isolated. To her mother, she was still optimistic. To her cousin, the truth was plain. Aunt Linda never understood Yuanyuan. There's a saying in China, "Raise children so they can care for you in old age." Linda embodied it. Yuanyuan endured it. From childhood, her mother drilled into her that success and filial duty must come first. After her father died, Yuanyuan accepted that burden. Even when she yearned for independence, she never resisted. On every major decision, she gave in, never daring to question her mother. At 48, Linda moved into her daughter's dorm. She could have chosen differently, stayed in her old apartment, found work in another city, even built a life of her own. Instead, she staked everything on Yuanyuan. The unspoken rule was simple: I gave you life, so you must carry mine. She never saw that her daughter was already breaking. China's safety net remains thin, especially for the poor and for rural families. Parents know they cannot depend on the state, so they depend on their children. And many children grow up believing, I am not just myself, I am my parents' lifeline. Filial duty comes before my own dreams, before my own life. Yuanyuan wanted to be a lawyer. She wanted independence. She wanted a future. Instead, she became a cautionary tale, a reminder of how love, when bound too tightly, can turn into chains. How do you see this case? Was it devotion or control mistaken for love? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you found this story meaningful, please like and subscribe to my channel.